Hi, I'm Ryan Savino, and this is a well-being video about strategies for managing challenging emotional reactions to high-stakes projects. This is based off of a workshop that I co-facilitated with the biography and memoir program, but these strategies that I'll talk about are applicable across a variety of um, high-stakes or large projects that you might complete. I'm a clinical fellow in the Wellness Center. Um, and a social worker. So when you're attempting to complete a large project, you might find, many students find that a variety of difficult feelings will uh, come up for them. They might have self-doubt, they might feel uh, anxious about completing the project, or they might even start to feel hopeless or pessimistic about completing their project. You might ask yourself, why is it so hard for me to just think positively about a program that might be something you wanted to do for years or since you were a kid? Um, One of the reasons why that is, one of the reasons why it's very challenging for us to uh, just uh, ignore or suppress or distract ourselves from those feelings is it's simply goes against the way our brains are wired. Uh, our brains are there to help keep us safe, so we tend to remember things that are threatening more saliently than things that are positive. We also lack a delete button in our brain. So some of the same things that we can do to remove something in a document simply do not work when we're trying to uh, unthink something negative. Um, but what we can do is we can develop new associations with something that we're finding very difficult or unpleasant. So perhaps we've had a project that was very challenging for us in the past, and we might recall how we felt when we're completing our dissertation. We cannot go back and erase the memory, but we can work with the help of potentially our advisor or friends or therapists to develop a new relationship with doing a very difficult and challenging project. So what happens when we try to push our uh, negative internal experiences away is it's very much like trying not to think of a pink elephant. Uh, you can distract yourself momentarily. You might watch Netflix or do another project, uh, but inevitably the thought of the pink elephant will come back and occupy your attention. Um, a similar metaphor is that uh, finding it, uh, working on a difficult project can be very much like falling into a pit of quicksand. For many of us, our instinctual sort of knee-jerk reaction when we fall into a pit of quicksand or when we work on a project that's very difficult is to thrash about and to panic and to try to push ourselves out of the quicksand, much like swimming. But in fact, reacting to a quicksand requires being uh, calm and thoughtful and going against that instinct to paddle. Uh, uh, Allegedly, we're supposed to stay relatively still and either float on our back or try to kind of reach for a float on our belly until we can grab onto something, or somebody can throw us a rope to help us get out. um, Many of us in grad school have worked for years or potentially decades to get where we are. The challenge is that when we're in a tug of war with our self doubt or our uncomfortable and unpleasant feelings, we can often lose touch with the very things that we love about whatever our discipline might be or our particular project might be. So uh, the end goal, something that you might work on if you were to go into therapy, particularly with a therapist who practices acceptance and commitment therapy, would be to learn to drop the rope um, in the tug of war with our self-doubt monster, and to accept without condoning or being happy about these thoughts that might creep their way into our attention when we're working on something really difficult and that we might personalize. Um, the rationale is that doing things that we love often uh, come with that self doubt. It's hard to live a valued life. And I'll come back to values in a couple of slides. It's hard to live a valued life without those kinds of uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. So often, if we're overwhelmed with intense emotions uh, or difficult thoughts, it's challenging to try to think our way out of that. But what we can do more effectively as people is to behave our way out of it, to learn to ride the wave or to tolerate that distress in order to make it to the next moment or the next day when we're maybe in a uh, more effective space to problem solve or to address that problem in a more systematic way. So this skill is called TIP, and I'll briefly work through most of the acronym. So the T in TIP is temperature. So when we're overwhelmed with emotion, it can be helpful to kind of hack our biology and to either uh, dunk our face in cold water or to take ice packs and to put them underneath our eyes. For this skill, it's important to be in good cardiac health. So if you have any problems, cardiology related, it's probably not recommended. Um, but what tip the temperature can do is it can activate this dive response that is this deeply ingrained sort of evolutionary mammalian response. So it activates uh, our rest and relaxation, our parasympathetic nervous system, and helps to down regulate our emotions, much like if we were to jump into cold water. The I stands for intense exercise. So when that might be useful is if you're feeling um, kind of numb or maybe even distracted. It could be something as simple as doing jumping jacks, jogging around your room. It might be going outside for a brisk walk. Maybe you have some weights you can lift. The P stands for paced breathing. A useful and easy starting protocol for paced breathing is box breathing. And what that entails is for a count of four, inhaling for four, holding for four, exhaling for four, and holding for four. What that can help to do is uh, flip the urge many of us will have when we're feeling anxious to hyperventilate, which actually can lead to a whole cascading set of symptoms that actually cause us to feel in our body many of the sensations associated with anxiety, and it can kind of snowball. Paired muscle relaxation, it can be also incredibly useful. Are a number of scripts for that available online, or if somebody wanted to reach out for one, you are welcome to. But I wanted to breeze past that one a little bit for the purposes of time. Mindfulness is a core skill across many of the approaches that people find, therapy clients find helpful, and people just in general find helpful for managing difficult emotions. A really brief definition or conceptualization of mindfulness. One of the reasons why we practice mindfulness is it is the first step to acting effectively. A helpful way to think about that is if you're feeling uncomfortable with the temperature in a room, it's helpful to look at the thermostat and to establish is it too hot or too cold, so that I can then determine, do I want to turn the temperature up? Do I want to turn the temperature down? Do I want to open a window? Do I want to put on a jacket? But before that, we might just feel uncomfortable and not really have an effective direction for change. The mindfulness also is the practice of intentionally and accurately attending to the present moment. And the reason why we do this is the present moment is the only moment which we can control or change. We cannot, unfortunately, change the past, even if there is something that we would want to forget or want to change. We can change our relationship with that event or how we're thinking about or feeling about the event, but we cannot change the event, nor can we directly change the future, short of the steps we can take in the present. So that's why we attend to the present moment in mindfulness skills. A very helpful starting place is this skill called, which I'll often refer to as 5 to 1. So it tunes into our senses, and the reason why we tune into our senses is because they are quintessentially in the present. So you could start by looking for 5 objects you can see in the room around you. So I might say computer, a lamp, water bottle, hand sanitizer, keys. I think that was 5. Forgive me if I lost count. And then you might touch 4 objects and really try to sense how they feel. You might touch the desk you're sitting at to tune into the feeling of sort of slippery, or you might touch a piece of your clothing and feel the roughness of it and really tune in intentionally in the moment to that sensation. Then you would listen for 3 sounds, smell or sniff to sense 2 smells around you, and then taste 1 taste, which can sort of be hard. Sometimes you might need to sip your coffee. If you've ever had the experience of finally having the chance to sit down and to work on a project that it feels like you have been putting off for months, the postponing your worry skill can be really useful. What that entails is setting a time and a place to intentionally worry, as strange as that sounds. So you might say, I'm going to worry at 3 p.m. at my kitchen table. It's important to pick a place that you are not trying to intentionally relax, or a time that you're not trying to intentionally relax. So it's best not to do it when you're in bed. You want to stick to your plan about intentionally worrying. And then throughout the day, when a thought creeps up into your mind, you want to briefly jot it down, summarize it, keywords, maybe 2 or 3 words, potentially on a piece of paper, actually might be best, or maybe in your notes app, and then to go back to it during your scheduled worry time. One of the things that can be really painful about completing a big project, like a dissertation or a thesis or a capstone, is that we'll often personalize that task. So the uh, idea of self as content and self as context can be transformative. It takes a little bit of time to wrap our heads around, and it actually is an experiential mindfulness practice as well. Here I have a picture of a lamp and a desk, and um, that's intentional because a lamp is often used as a metaphor for self as content and self as context. So when we're fused, when we're kind of caught up in self as content, we equate our thoughts and feelings and memories to ourselves. We might think, uh, "I am bad if I'm having a thought I'm bad," or "I do stink at writing a dissertation," if we're having that thought. Um, Self as context is the intentional uh, bringing our intentional awareness to the act of noticing. Essentially, it is practicing the awareness of that thought. I stink at writing a dissertation, or I'm bad, um, and uh, highlighting that if I can notice that thought, it's much like a piece of furniture in a room. Um, uh, if uh, and I am much like the lamp, I'm the source of this noticing or attention that might be directed towards different things, but which is separate from the objects or mental events in a room. Um, the uh, when we're losing our motivation or feeling burnt out, it can be really helpful to reorient ourselves towards our values. So if our values are ongoing, they're not an outcome, they're a quality of action. So you might just consider them an adjective, a kind of like a descriptive way of doing something. So they can be available in any moment. So they're separate from a goal. And we might be finding ourselves kind of falling short of a goal in the moment or early on in the process of a goal. And so they're not mutually exclusive and both are helpful. But an example of a value might be caring and a goal might be married. We can be caring and loving and have thoughtful and meaningful and close relationships without being married. And once we're married, that's something we can continue to practice if it's something that's important to us. Often they need to be prioritized or held lightly. It's possible to become like fused with a value, but we might have to prioritize something in the moment. So maybe being assertive with somebody we love might be something we have to prioritize, even if we also value being caring. And they're chosen, not given. They come from within and not some sort of externally imposed or condoned value system, although they might as well. For goals, it's helpful to think of them as destinations while we're going in a particular direction, the value being the direction, and the goals kind of a destination. So a value might be heading west, a goal might be I'm going to pass by Pittsburgh and Chicago and Denver on the way to LA. I'm taking maybe an epic road trip. It's helpful to have SMART goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And I also spoke about some quick tips. The Pomodoro technique involves setting a timer, working till the end of that timer, taking a break, and then repeating that process. Often people use 25 minutes. It's helpful to be aware of your internal clock. Are you a night owl or an early bird when you're thinking about working on a big project? Um, if you find that you're lacking the motivation, procrastinating to do something, it can be helpful to anchor it to something else, to do it like essentially right before something else that you know you have to do. And it can also be helpful to rethink where motivation is in relation to action. Often we'll find that our motivation increases after we engage in an action rather than um, what many of us will fall into of waiting to feel motivated to do something. So once again, I'm Ryan. I'm a clinical fellow at the Wellness Center, and here is some of our contact information. Thank you for watching.